Hello and welcome to another edition of Class of Creativity. In this video we will be creating 3 different value charts, and the items that I'm going to be using are just a regular pencil, any color pencil if you have one. If not, you can use a pencil for that, and a marker and a ruler. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do when creating this chart is, of course, put your first and last name up at the top left hand corner. And then the title of this paper is going to be called Value, or what we know as shading, adding lights and darks and medium tones to objects. So there are 3 different types of techniques we can use when adding value to an object. There are a few more, but we're just going to focus on these 3. Tone, so write these down right next to one another. Crosshatch, and pointillism. And go ahead and underline each of those words as well. First thing I want you to do is place your ruler a little bit underneath that tone. And what I'm going to have you do is start at the 5-inch mark. You're going to draw from the 5-inch mark, which is that long line right next to the 5. You're going to draw up, over, and then back down to about where the 5-inch mark is at. So all you're doing is basically tracing your ruler and just eyeballing it back down to that 5. Put a mark at every inch. So at the 5-inch, every one of those long lines that's got the number next to it, that is the inch mark. And then when you take your ruler away, it should look something like this. So what you're going to do with those inch marks is you're just going to come straight across and break this up into 5 different sections. You can use a ruler if you want to go across to make the lines neater. It's completely up to you. I'm going to do this 3 more times, 1 underneath tone, 1 underneath crosshatch, and 1 underneath pointillism. Make your marks at every inch. And then come across. Once we get your charts finished, please label each box 1 through 5. Okay, so your paper should look something like this. So as far as tone goes, the technique is basically what we know as shading, or a blending technique as well. So what I want you to do to begin with tone, and box number 1, is you're just going to fill it in pretty dark. I don't want you to press so hard that you're going to break the pencil or tear the paper. But as you can see, I've got my pencil on its side. I'm not going straight up and down with it. I've got a little bit of an angle. And I'm just filling this box in and putting a good amount of pressure on the side of that pencil. Now the other thing is, we can always go back the other direction again to just darken it up even more. So layering your pencil, you can get darker results or darker values without even having to press down really hard. Okay, then number 2, we want to fill that square in and still give the pencil some pressure, but not as much. Probably going to go a little bit darker. You just want it to be a step lighter than box number 1. So I'm going to go over it one more time. Just kind of fill that in. And as you can probably guess, box number 3 is going to be a little bit lighter. Box number 4, you're barely putting any pressure on this pencil. And then box number 5 you're going to leave alone. So you have a five different values. For crosshatch, if you do have a colored pencil, you can use it, but you don't have to. You can use a pencil. What we'll do for crosshatch is just we're going to draw 2 lines. We're kind of just put an X right in the middle of this box. That'll be your guidelines. So what we want to do is we want to draw lines very, very close to one another in the first box. And follow it from from the center down to up to one corner and then down to another corner. And then you follow along the other diagonal line and just draw them really, really close to one another. Now, if you have a little space, like let's say you draw one line that's a little bit further out, it's okay. Come back and fill it in. So it's not how much pressure we're putting on the pencil, it's how many lines we're drawing in that box. And then what you're going to do for the next one is you're going to do the same X, but now these lines are going to be a little further apart, all the way to one corner, all the way down to the other. And as you can see, just because we're making these lines a little bit further apart, it already looks lighter. And you're going to continue doing that all the way down. And so your crosshatch looks like something like this. So obviously number 3, we use less lines, number 4 even less, and number 5 none at all. The next value chart is called pointillism. What I want you to do for this is basically it's what the word says, points. They're basically just dots that are placed really close together. And the reason why I'm using a marker for this is, as you can see, I'm not stabbing the paper with the marker because that will ruin the marker. You just want to make a bunch of dots inside of this first square. Okay, so many that they're actually going to be touching each other, and it's going to remind you of maybe if you were looking down on a crowded room and everybody was standing shoulder to shoulder in this room. So you continue. What I'm doing right here is I'm just to show you. I'm just going around in circles. So I'm not touching it because those dots would be very, very small. If I were just to do this, the dots would be small. So I'm just going and putting my marker down and just making that quick, small circular motion with my hand. And if you see spaces in between some of these dots, go ahead and fill those in too. So you want to fill this first box almost completely. You're going to still see some of the paper come through, and that's okay. But you want to get this box filled in pretty well. Okay. And then what it's going to look like when you're finished, obviously, is a lot of dots in the first box where they're touching each other. The second box, there's still a lot, but they're not touching each other. It wouldn't be like standing shoulder to shoulder in the room. It'd be less people here. And then obviously even less. And in box number 4, less. And in box number 5, leave it alone. So there you have now completed, when you're finished, you've completed 3 different techniques for adding value to objects. This is part 1 of a 2-part video. The second part we'll be turning our paper over to the other side and applying 2 of these techniques and turning circles into spheres.